What is your favorite JRPG of all time? That's a question I've been asked so many times, and while the answer itself is simple, I was wondering, what's my number 2 or 3 or 4? So today it's finally time to talk about my top 15 favorite JRPGs of all time. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure that this list is a bit controversial, but hey, let me know your thoughts and tell me your favorite JRPG in the comments. Alright, let's go. Yep, we're starting off with an utter masterpiece and one of the most influential action JRPGs ever. I love the story of Nier Automata so much because of all the philosophical questions it raises. It's incredibly well written, full of emotional and surprising moments, and the fact that it's told from 3 different perspectives is just so intriguing. Every single one of these 3 perspectives slowly unfold the mysteries behind the world, the humans, the machines, and the characters. All the twists and turns caught me by surprise so hard that the story sticks with me to this day. And if this wouldn't already be enough for a great game, the fluid action combat with its bullet hell moments and absolutely fantastic boss fights feel incredibly good and fun the whole way through. And then there's the soundtrack. Oh my god! The haunting melodies are a perfect fit for the desolate post-apocalyptic world, and combined with the mesmerizing vocals, they emphasize the feeling of isolation and loneliness like no other game. I love how the vocals are the player's only connection to humanity, and how the fact that this is a fantasy language creates a distance to humans at the same time. Nier Automata show as a very special game and a truly unique gaming experience. That's why it's one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. Sea of Stars managed to do something rare. It has kept its promise. The promise that it would find the balance between inspiration and nostalgia, and being modern and unique. The result is a fantastic JRPG experience. While the story doesn't win awards for the plot itself, it had some insanely cool moments. It surprised me, it got me super emotional, and it blew my mind over and over again with unexpected twists and moments. What I love most about this game though, is its insane level design. All the areas and dungeons are designed so well because there are tons of things to interact with, so it's not just running through a boring corridor. There are secrets to find, puzzles to solve, and the verticality makes jumping and climbing around a lot of fun. This certainly reminded me of games from the 90s and early 2000s where dungeons were full of puzzles and secrets. I love this approach to level design so much, as it's a welcome change between battles. Combat with its time button presses may not be new to the genre, but enemy variety, swappable characters, and the many unique abilities kept the combat immensely fun the whole time. And then again, the soundtrack. So good. It hits that mark of nostalgia perfectly, and the variety is insane, making emotional moments even more emotional, and epic battles even more epic. Sea of Stars is simply amazing, and it holds a very special place in my heart. Yes, I'm dead serious. I know a lot of people don't like this game, but I love it. That's because Star Ocean: The Last Hope tells a story that starts off hopeful and adventurous, and then quickly shifts into a plot full of despair. And I think it's rare to see that in a JRPG. That way I was so invested in the fate of each character, especially because seeing the protagonists change so much during the story. Star Ocean 4 also has one of the most memorable plot twists for me, and I will never forget how extremely shocked I was to watch the plot unfold at a certain point. But the story isn't the only thing I adore about this game. I love the feel of a grand adventure as you can explore multiple distinct planets. You visit underdeveloped planets, a planet with a medieval setting, a huge space stations, and some other interesting places, towns and dungeons. I love the real-time action combat as well. It's super dynamic, you get tons of awesome looking skills, you can swap between 4 characters, and so much more. And I love how you can click subscribe if you like watching videos about JRPGs, indie games and more. Super smooth, I know. Anyway, I know that it's probably a lot of nostalgia talking here, but the adventure, characters, combat system and music of Star Ocean 4 are fantastic. At least for me. And that's why it will always be one of my favorite JRPGs ever. Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana has basically everything I like in a JRPG. The action combat with its rock paper scissors mechanic is definitely among the most simple yet fun combat systems ever. Its extremely fast and fluid movement is second to none. Simply unparalleled, thanks to these super quick characters, dodges and lightning fast attacks. The swappable characters all come with their own attack type that is required for certain enemies, which gives this just enough depth. The result is a deeply satisfying and addictive combat system that gets even more fun the more time you spend with it, and I honestly think this is kind of rare. Ys 8 also has a brilliant story that is told from two different perspectives. Seeing how these perspectives are connected to each other and what the mysteries behind the islands and its past are is really exciting, surprising and engaging. And for me personally, this is one of the most memorable stories I've experienced in a JRPG. The cherry on top of all this JRPG greatness are the fantastic characters. Some of them have some very personal stories, some of them are just badasses, and all of them are highly likable and well written. That's what makes Ys 8's cast one of my favorites in the genre. And it goes without saying that the OST is an absolute masterpiece. I'd even say that this is the best music Falcom has ever put in a game. The variety is simply outstanding and there's one banger after another. For me, Ys 8 has it all and everything it has is phenomenal. This is how you do a prequel story. I mean, what's left to say about this game that hasn't already been said, right? All the questions that OG FF7 raised about Zack have been answered in this game. Not only is the story of Zack incredibly exciting, but also really tragic and so sad that it brought many to tears. And not just because of the infamous ending. For me, the relationship with Aerith was heartbreaking, because they both knew they wanted to be together, be a couple, but Zack's fate didn't let them. And the chemistry between Aerith and Zack makes it even more sad to watch these two lovers never get the relationship they wanted. Of course, there's more than just a love story. Themes like betrayal, freedom, and what it means to be human definitely make this one of the most mature stories in the genre. Square Enix once again proved that they can write fantastic characters. Zack, Sephiroth, Aerith, Angeal, Cloud, Genesis, these are all iconic characters for a reason. And I especially love Zack for being childish and honorable, quirky and protective, and funny and serious at the same time. I love that so much probably because I can identify with that a lot. But it's not all story and characters. There's also a fantastic combat system that got the perfect overhaul with the remake. It feels very much like a modernized version of a PS2 era combat system, and it's an absolute joy. The materia system once again provides great customization and total freedom of how you approach combat. The remake makes combat feel super responsive, snappy, satisfying, and most importantly, I thought it offered a great challenge, which made encounters even more exciting. Crisis Core is a very special gaming experience, especially when you're a big fan of OG FF7. And even if you're not, I highly recommend this game, it's so incredible. I played both Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 before playing 3, and while I loved the story in both the first and the second game, I was not prepared for this. Wow. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a masterpiece, both in storytelling and writing great characters. But first things first. The whole premise of the story sucked me in completely within the first hour. It's about two rival nations, one focused on mechanical technology, the other on magical technology, and they're in a never-ending war against each other. The thing is, everyone only has a maximum of 10 years to live. What follows is a story of unexpected twists and moments so emotional that it's actually hard not to cry like a baby. Honestly, I don't want to say more than that in case you haven't played this yet, but yeah, it's one of my favorite stories ever. That's also because of the cast of characters that not only have complex and well-written personalities, but also an undeniably heartwarming chemistry. While in the beginning the character interactions are still dominated by the hate for the animation, these interactions evolve into something so beautiful. That is easily my favorite thing about this game, and I would even go as far as to say that the cast of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is in the top 5 cast of characters ever, in any video game. But of course the combat is brilliant too, as it finds the perfect balance of the basics established in the first game and the complexity of the second, while bringing cool new mechanics to the table. The class system is simple on paper, but effectively makes the combat itself addictive, highly customizable and immensely fun. The result is a game that learns so much from its very good predecessors, and for me personally, made everything even better. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a masterpiece, period. It had to be on this list. Dragon Quest XI is the ultimate fusion of a classic and modern JRPG, and I love it so much. Story-wise, Dragon Quest XI is more on the light-hearted side. It's easy to follow, charming and funny, until it's not. I mean, it gets surprisingly dark, and it's this contrast that makes the story so damn engaging. Every twist and every dark moment feels so much more impactful, and even the fantastical moments like getting to a new special place just hits different in this game. Except for the fantastic story itself, I love how Dragon Quest is able to make you feel like you're on a grand adventure over the whole world. Every town is inspired by a different culture of the real world. Every dungeon is a joy to explore thanks to their unique mechanics, and every wide area is filled with classic Dragon Quest monsters. That way this world feels so alive, and it's hard not to be sucked in completely. I mean, the fact that this is a really long game helps too. My first playthrough took me around 120 hours, and even then I didn't want to stop. That's also because the simple yet engaging turn-based combat is so good that it stays fun the whole time. It's really straightforward, but that's exactly what makes it so good, because there's a heavy amount of strategy involved. Some of the later boss fights, especially the optional super bosses, were some of the most challenging turn-based battles I've ever fought. It truly is a deeply satisfying combat system. Dragon Quest XI is one of my favorite JRPGs because its journey feels so whimsical, so charming, and just so wonderful. It's a game I know I will replay every now and then. There are only 4 games I've spent more than 1000 hours with: Phantasy Star Online, Destiny 1, Monster Hunter World, and Final Fantasy XIV. And that's because Final Fantasy XIV is a remarkable game. While this is an MMORPG per definition, it really is just a JRPG in its core. It tells an incredibly engaging story over the course of multiple expansions, each with their own setting and narrative focus. With the story so long, you can be sure that there are plenty of moments that are just epic, break your heart, make you laugh, and basically make you feel all the emotions, like all of them. Its many characters are written so well, all with their own likable personalities, and since you spend a lot of time with them, they quickly start to feel like a family. The journey brings you to a diverse set of magical, unique places that bring this troubled world to life. Boss battles with their creative mechanics are always fun to fight, and especially the further you get into the game, the more epic and absolutely brilliant these battles get. I'm not exaggerating when I say that bosses, raids, and dungeons of Final Fantasy XIV provided some of my all-time favorite gaming memories. Of course, with me being a Final Fantasy fan, I absolutely adore the lore for the series you can find in this online title, and every time I play this game, I feel like it's a true celebration of the Final Fantasy brand. And naturally, with this being a Final Fantasy title, the music by Masayoshi Soken perfectly underlined all the epic, sad and heartwarming moments. This OST is filled with some of my favorite pieces of music in the genre, and even if you don't want to play this game, I highly recommend you check out the soundtrack. Final Fantasy XIV is more than just an MMORPG. It's a brilliant Final Fantasy entry, one of the best JRPGs, and most certainly one of my favorite games of all time. This is the most recent game on this list, and I'm still processing what I experienced. Metaphor ReFantasio checked all the boxes for me, and I completely fell in love with this game. What I love the most about Metaphor is that it actually has a really unique world, both in regards of the aesthetic and the atmosphere. The whole world building with all the creatures and different tribes are so interesting and create a universe that I just want to see more of. And I'm really impressed how well Atlus managed to display racism and discrimination. They just didn't use it for just one character's backstory or a handful of situations like we all know from bad written movies or something. No, they leaned in hard and showed that racism is omnipresent. We don't see stuff like that very often. The thing that really made me addicted to Metaphor is its gameplay though. The blend of real-time and turn-based combat proved to be a brilliant mix, as it killed all the potential frustration I could have had with it. Being able to hack and slash through weak enemies while still earning a relevant amount of XP made grinding so incredibly rewarding and fun. And Usually I rarely grind, but this game made me do it, and I loved it. Making new friends and getting new archetypes, which are basically classes, is an addiction on its own, because that way the social aspects and combat gameplay are connected with each other, much more than, let's say, Persona 3. For me, the story itself starts off a bit slow, with the game feeling more like an anime with different arcs, but later on it gets wild. I mean, the payoff is crazy. There are some moments in this game that knocked my socks off. All this created an incredible experience for me, and I just couldn't put down the controller. This JRPG may be quite new, but I'm sure I will remember this experience for a very long time. I know I talk about Chain Echoes a lot, but for a good reason. This indie JRPG was developed by one person, which blew my mind when I heard this, because damn, this is so awesome. A big reason for that is the fantastic story. While this already starts with an interesting setup and some thrilling action, I was not prepared for what was to come. The story is exciting, emotional, engaging, and takes a couple of unexpected twists that I didn't really see coming. At the same time, the characters are highly likable and the world is full of interesting, beautiful places and deep lore to discover. The turn-based combat system is actually unique for a change, as actions move you back and forth on a gauge that determines how much damage you deal and take. It's simple in concept but requires a good strategy, and since you can have 4 characters in combat that get 1 character each that they can swap with, this combat system just never gets old. Then there is the addictive reward board, tons of secrets to discover, a masterpiece of a soundtrack composed by Eddie Mariano crew, and beautiful pixel art. This game is an unbelievable JRPG, a love letter to gaming in general, and one of my favorite games of all time. I still can't believe that we actually got this game, especially after the credits roll. I was just blown away. I know Final Fantasy VII Rebirth isn't perfect by any means, but everything it did right, I think it did exceptionally well. The well-known story of the original was expanded and added so much more depth and epic moments that the story got even more engaging than it was before. I think this works so well because Remake set up all kinds of possibilities with its unexpected changes to the original. So for Rebirth there was this anticipation of what surprising twist might await me, and a feeling of coming home to a world I love to be in since 1997. The result is a story I feel familiar with for the most part, but with moments staged so incredibly well thanks to the amazing voice cast and actors. I was on the edge of my seat, I laughed a lot, and I cried like a baby. Yeah, that's what the story did to me. But the story is nothing without its characters, and man, the cast of FF7 was always my favorite in gaming, but Remake and Rebirth just knocked it out of the park. Their highly likable personalities and engaging backstories, embedded in brilliantly written dialogue, made these characters feel so real and authentic. All the personal stories like Barrett's and Red 13's are fantastic stories on their own, and the way they were portrayed here was simply amazing. Then there's this absolutely brilliant combat system that feels so good that it was impossible for me to put down the controller. Especially some of the boss fights and their spectacle are so great that I'm sure I will remember them for a very long time. I love the simple yet rewarding exploration in this game. I enjoyed the heck out of the side quests, and yes, I even fell in love with the minigames. Not all of them, and I also wasn't a big fan of me being forced to play multiple minigames in Costa del Sol, but that was just like 1 hour of my roughly 95-hour playthrough, so I can live with that. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is an outstanding game, and every time I think about it, I want to go back and replay it. I know it's not for everyone, but for me, this is one of the best JRPGs ever. Yes, another Final Fantasy title, but there's a reason this series is the biggest JRPG series in the world. And also, it's my favorite, so no surprise there are multiple entries on this list. Final Fantasy X always fascinated me with its rich and unique world that has this dangerous yet gripping atmosphere. The constant threat of sin on the one side and the hope of Spiro's people on the other create a contrast that makes FF10's world one of the most engaging and interesting to explore. The journey of Yuna, Tidus and the others is crafted so masterfully, with so many moments that kept me at the edge of my seat, brought me to tears or simply surprised me a lot. I mean, the plot twists are some of the most iconic plot twists in the genre. And the characters, they are so wonderful and so memorable. They all have so much personality, they all have their own fascinating stories, and they all have this undeniable chemistry, especially Yuna and Tidus. I know that to this day people dislike FF10 for being linear, but it never bothered me. I feel like it's more than fitting for this game to be linear, as Yuna's journey to become a high summoner is predetermined and, most importantly, it's urgent. Yuna has to continue no matter what. Only when the group and Yuna herself starts to question this journey, then the world starts to open up and you can visit places you've already been to. I always thought this is genius, helps the narrative and draws me even more into this world. The combat in Final Fantasy X will always be one of my favorites for its simplicity in concept and its incredibly strategic depth the further you get into it. I love how well designed most of the boss battles are, and I love that some of them take me over 20 minutes to beat them, because I take my time to make it the best decision. All of this JRPG goodness is wrapped in one of the best soundtracks in gaming, that basically was the soundtrack to my childhood. I replayed Final Fantasy X at least 6 times, and I love it so much that I'm sure there will be a lot more playthroughs in the future. I said it in the beginning of the video, this list might be a bit controversial for some, but I want to remind you that this is my personal list and I freaking love Star Wars until the end of time. I remember borrowing it from a friend when I was 15, took it home, showed it to my brothers, and we all fell in love with it instantly. Yeah, this was the best summer ever. I fell in love because it was something I've never seen before. The mix of underdeveloped planets with a medieval setting and sci-fi elements is still absolutely captivating to this day. Admittedly, the dialogue is kinda horrible, but the story itself is wild. And when I say wild, I mean wild. The twists and turns are so weird and surprising, yet so cool and brave at the same time, which is why I love replaying this game over and over again. Most characters are bland, let's be honest here, but the ones that are not are some of my favorites in the genre. For example, Cliff, who sometimes acts faster than he thinks, but has its heart in the right place and would do anything to protect his friends. Probably something I could identify as a 15-year-old. Back in the day, the combat was revolutionary for me. Up until then, I had only played turn-based JRPGs, and then Star Ocean had this real-time action combat. My 15-year-old mind was blown. To this day, I found the combat to be thrilling and challenging, and it still feels really good. There are countless awesome special attacks to unlock that make the combat look and feel so spectacular. Till the End of Time also was one of the few JRPGs I've played that made the effort of shaking up dungeon design a bit, giving them cool unique mechanics that made exploration even more fun. And speaking of dungeons, it's one of these older games that had multiple optional dungeons, and I absolutely love that. And of course, the soundtrack is so good, completely underrated. It's filled with catchy melodies, tracks that are JRPG versions of progressive metal, and beautifully calm pieces. Star Ocean Till the End of Time is a weird game, I know, but man, playing this is so incredibly fun. This game has a very special place in my heart. I mean, come on, if you watched any of my videos, it wasn't hard to predict Crosscode being very high on this list. I just love this game so much for so many reasons. The story is surprisingly captivating and the pacing is so good that I couldn't stop playing because I always wanted to know what happens next. Uncovering the mysteries behind Leia, her being unable to talk, the fictional world of Crossworlds, and some of the characters is proof that Radical Fish games are masters when it comes to storytelling. There are so many emotional and heartbreaking moments, so many epic things happening, that it's hard not to fall in love with Crosscode's story. Underneath the story, the game discusses themes like identity, what it means to be human, and what's the purpose of life, which all makes the overall story even more engaging. But that's also because of the wonderful cast of characters with unique and charming personalities. And even though Leia is not able to say very much, the artful character portraits breathe life into her and the rest of the cast. The action combat is simply brilliant. The fast-paced combat requires both precision and strategy, as basically every enemy has a unique mechanic. Switching between the elemental powers while performing insane looking special attacks makes combat feel super dynamic. Especially boss fights are out of this world. They basically are puzzles in themselves, which is fun to figure out and satisfying to beat. Chef's kiss, really. And speaking of puzzles, this is my favorite part in this game. Crosscode is filled with incredibly well designed puzzles that push you to the limits when it comes to being creative and being precise and fast. They can get extremely challenging, but solving them made me feel so smart, it's almost ridiculous. And what is a JRPG without its soundtrack? The composer Dennis Akpolo created a beautiful mix of nostalgic instrumentalization and countless catchy melodies that make the emotional, heartbreaking and epic moments even better. Crosscode is a masterpiece and it's one of the best games I've ever played. Okay, just really quick, a few honorable mentions because I would feel bad not to mention a couple more games that are so brilliant, like Shadow Heart's Covenant, Valkyrie Profile 2 and Terra Enigma, that are not on this list only because it's too long since I played them. Or some of the all-time favorites that I also love, like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger and Dragon Quest VIII. They are all brilliant. And Tales of Arise, Tales of Vesperia, Ni no Kuni and Xenoblade Chronicles. These are all games that I adore so much. They basically are all my number 16 and they are all awesome games. My favorite JRPG of all time is Final Fantasy VII. Probably not a surprise to a lot of you and probably not very original, but what can I say? This game is my favorite game of all time for countless reasons. The story around Cloud, Aerith and Sephiroth is simply brilliant and it's iconic for a reason. The plot twists are so impactful that they get me every time I replay this. It's filled with moments that are so epic, so memorable, and I probably could tell you the whole story of FF7 off the top of my head. The cast of characters is one of my favorite casts of characters in any game because they all have complex personalities and backstories. But also because the dynamic between them is so authentic, it almost feels like you as a player are part of the group. Final Fantasy VII also has one of the richest worlds that is still very unique in both the setting and atmosphere. Some of my favorite gaming memories are from discovering new places in Final Fantasy VII, like the Gold Saucer, the Temple of the Ancients, Nibelheim, Cosmo Canyon, Wutai. Everything is so magical. The ATB combat system is timeless. I mean, it's still action-packed and fun to this day. That's mainly because of the materia system, which is my favorite character customization system in any game, as it allows complete freedom in building your own character without having characters being the same. I mean, now that I think about it, there is literally nothing I dislike about 7. I love all the minigames, I love the humor, I love everything I mentioned before, and I love the soundtrack, which is my favorite JRPG soundtrack of all time, and Nobuo Uematsu's best work in my opinion. Final Fantasy VII is everything, and I can't imagine a game taking the #1 spot on my favorite games of all time. Alright, that's it, my favorite JRPGs of all time. Let me know in the comments what your favorite JRPG is and hit subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more lists like that. Alright, thanks so much for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.